Hi, this is Back Garden Bushcraft again. We've moved indoors today just because of all of the stuff we're going to be looking at. And this is part of our Scouts Navigator badges. And we're going to look at the equipment that you need for a hike. So to start off with, we'll start with how you dress for the hike, the appropriate clothing that you should be wearing, and what you need. Whenever you go hiking, you should be looking at lightweight, quick drying clothing, ideally in layers that you can remove or add to adjust your temperature. For a short hike of maybe an hour, most pairs of shoes will do, providing they have a suitable amount of grip on them. Once you get above an hour or so, you're needing to look to move to something a little bit more substantial that's going to provide you with a lot more support. You have two options. Normally with the hiking boots, you have the softer trainer type, gives you plenty of grip, gives you ankle support. Or you can move to the full leather boot, which is my preferred choice. This is high ankle, gives me lots of support for walking. Nice sturdy grip pattern on the bottom, tackle any conditions, really waterproof. Unfortunately, the leather does need a little bit more care to look after it, but these will serve you for a long period of time. For the Scouts, because they're growing and growing quite quickly, the soft type probably the more cost-effective option because you're going to end up changing them more frequently. So trousers for hiking, joggers and jeans are an absolute no-go. They soak up water, they stick to your legs when they're wet, they're cold. What you should be looking at are polycotton trousers or a nylon-y type base. Water will get wet, but they will dry really quickly from your body heat, and then you can layer them up. Certainly, as the weather starts to go colder, you can be looking at wearing a suitable base layer underneath your trousers and underneath your top, which will give you a nice warm layer to start with, and then you start layering above. Again, on top, cotton against your skin is not a good idea, especially during cooler weather, because it will get wet as you perspire, and then as it starts to dry, it will go very, very cold and it will feel unpleasant. Man-made fibers are really good for this. Wool is another good choice. As a mid-layer then, looking at fleece or a lightweight wool jumper. And then over the top, you need to make sure you have a waterproof outer shell, which will also block really cold winds. You need to take care of your feet when you're hiking. So good pairs of socks. Again, try to avoid cotton. When you're wearing proper hiking boots, ideal situation, you want a nice, well-fitted, thin pair of socks against your skin, and then a thicker pair of hiking socks over the top, which then fill out the boot, provides support, cushioning for your feet, and absorbs any moisture from it to keep your feet nice and dry. You need to look after your feet, especially if you're on a trip that's going to last more than a day or two, because if your feet start to get wet, they're more prone to blisters, and once you get blisters, they become very, very painful. We don't want that to happen. That's the clothing sorted out. The next thing we need to consider is how we're going to carry our kit. The size of your pack is going to be appropriate to the length of time you're hiking. If it's a day hike, a couple of hours, you'll probably get away with a pack like this, maybe even smaller. I've got side pouches on these. I have the option to remove those to reduce the amount that I carry. It gives me the option then, if it's going out for a little bit longer, to just add the pouches. You can put a little bit more kit in there to carry. day hikes, overnight hikes where you're having to carry your sleeping kit, you're going to need to move up to a bigger rucksack. Again, this stronger, well supported, well fitted, but what you need to bear in mind is that the pack needs to be appropriate to the size of the person carrying it. I can get away with something this big. One of our smaller scouts won't have as much kit because it will generally be smaller. It'll be easier for them to carry something a little bit lighter. But some of the kit you will be sharing between the scouts and the group, so you're not going to be expected to carry everything. You will be carrying bits of kit. So there are the packs, and we move on to some of the important things that you should be carrying in them for a day hike. The most important thing to start off with is water. Two options. You have water bottle like this, or you have the hydration bladders, which will go inside the rucksacks and allows you to drink through the tube. The hydration bladder carries more liquid. The bottles, you need to carry more of them. However, if you've got a bottle, you have the advantage that you can put some sort of flavouring in there, which just makes the water taste that little bit nicer. You will need a minimum of a litre with you at any time, but you should be looking to carry a litre of water for every 2 hours you're planning on hiking. And that gives you a little bit of leeway then for water in case you're out longer than expected, in case something goes wrong and you'll get stuck. You may lose your way, you may find a route, you're going to have to take a change of direction. So that's your water. You also need your map and a compass so you can find your way around. So you're navigating, you'll probably want your route as well. We need to look also at safety. Within a rucksack, at any time you're going out walking, you should, as a minimum, have a first aid kit. It doesn't need to be as big as this. This contains enough for a multi-day camping trip. For a day hike, you may just want one bandage, a few plasters, especially some plasters you can use to treat blisters, especially if you're not used to walking. Something to protect a blister if it starts to form, allows you to walk home without being in too much pain. However, it's always better to carry too much first aid than not enough, because you don't know if you're going to meet someone on your hike who needs assistance, and then having the right first aid materials is important. We also add to that a whistle. This is for emergencies, for signalling for help. I've got it on a lanyard I have around my neck, or I can tie onto the rucksack so we don't lose it. And a signalling mirror. Now this is part of a hard drive out of a computer. As long as you've got a reflective surface, this is quite nice because it's metal, so it's not going to break. I can just drop it in to my bag, and then you can use the sunlight to get someone's attention. Another important bit of safety kit is a notepad and pencil or pen. I prefer to carry a pencil because it's less likely to run out. Pencil doesn't run when it gets wet. Certain pens in the damp will just run all across the page and you can't read anything at all. Notepad is useful because you'll have your route on there. You can leave a note with someone to say where you're going, when you're going to be back. If anything happens to you, you can leave a note somewhere to say where you are, what's happened. And in the event of a first aid situation, taking notes as to what's happened, what you've done is going to be very useful. So you should always be carrying paper, a pencil or pen with you at all times. In case we get stuck out, it's worth having some sort of fire lighting kit with you. This is probably a bit much, but certainly something that will take a flame, and a box of matches or ferro rod is really useful. It means that if you get stuck out unexpectedly overnight, then you've got a method of starting a fire just to keep warm. Also, doesn't matter whether you're going out during the day or night, having some form of light is useful with you. You don't know whether you're going to get delayed and you're going to end up getting back as the light fades. It doesn't matter how good your planning is, you can't always predict every eventuality. So a torch to find your way back, a torch to signal with when it gets dark, a torch to read the map with when it gets dark. So a few other useful pieces to carry on your short hikes. Sun cream, insect repellent, always useful. If you don't know what the weather's going to do, certainly I would include along with that a hat appropriate to the weather. Possibly a baseball cap or something if it's sunny, keep the sun off your head. Woolly hat in the winter. Gloves, always helpful, just to protect your hands. Emergency snacks. These are not to eat on the way around, these are just in case of emergency you get stuck out longer. By all means, take extra snacks with you to eat on your hike. And certainly when you're out for longer than an hour or so, you're probably going to want to take food with you as well. With that, toilet paper. You never know when you're going to need it. You only need a short length. Keep it in a plastic bag, keeps it dry. You can just leave that in the bottom or one of the pockets of your rucksack. It's always there if you need it. Bin bags are useful as well. Any rubbish you do not leave behind. Anything you take in on a hike, you carry back out on a hike. The bin bags are also very useful because you can use them as a waterproof liner for your rucksack. Keep all your kit dry. Rucksacks are not totally waterproof. If it rains enough, the water will go through them. All of your kit will get wet. So you need to make sure that you keep it dry because that is really unpleasant otherwise. Some other little useful bits and pieces. Pocket knife. Got a little Swiss Army knife here. Got a blade on it, a couple of screwdrivers, a saw. Really handy, even if it's just for opening your packet of sandwiches, cutting a few pieces of string. But a good knife, useful. Some nylon cord. I've got some paracord here. A couple of wooden toggles that we made earlier on one of the other videos I did. It's good for creating a ridgeline or putting up a set of toggles just to lift your rucksack up off the ground, just keep it tied to a tree to keep it out of the mud. And a couple of lengths of nylon bank line. You never know when a piece of cord will be handy, so it's worth having it just in case. So that is everything you need for a short hike. Going out for a bit longer, you may wish to take a rope for safety. Depends on where you're walking, where you plan on going. This rope is a bit too heavy, but a light rope just to give you some sort of security. can be very useful if you happen to be up on the beacons or on the moors. Thick fog comes in, there's a way of keeping your group together if you're having to move. But it's a safety feature that you may need to consider at some point in time. Okay, so we've looked at the equipment you will need for a day hike of varying lengths. Moving on now to an overnight hike. So this is going to be a 2-day hike with a night stop somewhere. So most importantly, you're going to need to carry your sleep system. Something to sleep in, something to sleep on. So I've got insulated mat and a sleeping bag. So that's your main sleep system. You then need something to provide your shelter. This is a hammock. You can also have a tent. With the tents, because they tend to be multi-person tents, what you would normally do is you would break the tent down and split it between the rucksacks of the people who are going to sleep in it. So if you've got 3 people sleeping in a tent, you split it 3 ways. So someone will carry the poles, someone will carry the inner, someone will carry the outer. You do need to make sure though you all stay together. Otherwise, if you lose someone, you've lost 1/3 of your tent. On top of that, you need to eat, and if you're out overnight, you're probably going to want something a little bit more substantial than the food that you carry for your lunch. So we have a small folding stove that will connect to a gas cylinder. I've just got a little tripod base there, which gives you the extra stability when it's on uneven ground. In addition to that, you're going to want a cooking pot. This one doubles up as a mug. Because it's stainless steel, I can use it on top of the gas. I can also hang it over a fire. So I've got multiple options for heating it. Once you cook your food, always helpful to have something to eat it off of. And your cutlery. You can cut down on this. These are enamel and steel. You can go for plastic, which reduces the weight slightly, doesn't bend. It will normally survive all your camping trips and any of the abuse that you're going to give it. For the overnight trips, you may need to consider a few other options. And probably for the scouts, it won't be something, but some of the scout leaders will potentially carry an axe to carry or to provide firewood if you're going to have a campfire. And because you're out overnight, you may need a folding shovel or a trowel, because if you're camping up on the moors or the beacons, or on a greenfield site with no facilities, you're going to need a toilet, and you use the shovel or trowel to create an appropriate toilet. Some other things you may want to consider, and they will be useful for varying types of trip, is the emergency shelter. So this is like a fly sheet off of a tent, but there's no poles, no inner, and is used by a group of hikers to create an emergency shelter, protect them from sudden bad weather, or if they have to shelter in an emergency on an unexpected trip, to just protect them from the weather while they're waiting for someone to help them. It's also worth considering something like a survival blanket. These are the silver lined blankets, which just provide an extra layer of insulation, which might be useful if you have a member of your trip starts to suffer from hypothermia. The weather turns unexpectedly cold. It gives you some more protection. And on your multi-day hikes, a roll of gaffer tape is the ideal equipment for your emergency repairs on almost anything. It will get you out of trouble, even if it's just to hold your boot together until you can get back home or to the car or somewhere where you can get a better repair done. So that is a run through of your kit list for your trips, your hikes, and we'll have a look at how to pack a rucksack in a little bit.
This is how to pack a rucksack. So you want to start with your dry clothes, put them at the bottom. So you're least likely to need these, so it's keep them out of the way. You want to put your sleeping bag also near the bottom of your bag. And also your hammock. The plate can sit on top or down the front of your rucksack. Now move on to the side pockets. So you can have your cooking pots, your sun cream and spray. Also the little stand for the gas can, the cooking pot, and also your knives and forks. And on the other side of the pocket, you'll have your first aid kit, your fire lighting kit, and also any other small items that you don't want to get stuck anywhere else. Also you'll want to put your waterproofs near the in the top compartment. This one's got a compartment in the mid of your bit, so you can fit waterproof trousers, waterproof coat into here. Right. You'll want your waterproofs also in the top compartment, like your coat and trousers. make sure that's securely zipped up. And make sure it's nice and secure. There's also another compartment on the lid, so you can put in your map and compass. Also your notepad, toilet paper and penknife might be able to also fit into it. And make sure that's zipped up as well. Oh, right, okay. Where's this going to go? String, whistle. Okay. Okay, got this. Right.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. Put any extra clothing items or like a fleece just on top. And I have power cord, some string, a whistle, 2 toggles, and a pen. I've got some extra room in the bottom compartment in the dry clothes, so they can also just go in there.